Australia's greatest infrastructure project, the Snowy Mountain Scheme, is 70 years old. It brought water to the Murray River and electricity, green electricity. Fun fact, the head of construction, Sir William Hudson, was the grandfather of Energy Minister Angus Taylor, the man now in charge of the government's controversial Snowy 2.0 and entire energy and climate challenge. Well, I asked the Minister first what the anniversary meant to him.
Oh, look, this is an iconic engineering project, but it was also an extraordinary project in Australian history. Tiki, massive immigration, incredibly successful immigration program around it. It built energy dispatchable, energy on demand, which was desperately needed at the time because Sydney and Melbourne were suffering blackouts, and of course it provided very important irrigation infrastructure for the west of the state and central west of right through to Adelaide, of course. So really iconic project, and of course, having personally grown up in the area, it's very meaningful to me, but much more importantly, meaningful to this country because it is and has played an enormously important role, and of course it will play an enormously important role in the future as we move towards Snowy 2.0.
Well, indeed, as you mentioned, green and dispatchable. Snowy 2.2, though, which you're now in charge of on behalf of the government, it is controversial. I mean, since its announcement in 2017, I think the cost has doubled, the timeline was pushed out. Is it more really than a trophy project for the government?
Well, can I just correct you on a couple of those things, Tiki? The costs are absolutely in line with the original feasibility estimates that were done in December 2017.
But not the original announcement, I guess.
Line. Well, the feasibility is what we work on. I mean, at the end of the day, a project has a feasibility done, and that's what we work on. That's where the cost benefit was done. That's where the return on investment for shareholders, which is the taxpayers of Australia, was done, and that's what counts. And of course, it's a very, very strong business case. And the essence of it is this, Tiki. We are seeing an electricity system where we're seeing prices go very low during the day because of all the solar cells on people's roofs in particular, and then when the sun goes out, the prices spike. Now that has to be fixed, and Snowy can play a role, not the only role, but it can play an important role in addressing that, ensuring that we keep the lights on, push prices down, particularly at those peak times. And of course, what Snowy offers in a market that has been going in that direction is very, very low-cost storage.
Yes,
to put it in perspective,
yes,
it would cost us several $100 billion to create the same level of storage with batteries. So this is a very, very strongly economic project.
But if somebody as highly respected as Kerry Schott, who chairs the Energy Security Board, has said there's been a lot of government intervention which hasn't helped, Snowy 2.0 is a bit of an overhang on investment decisions. Is she incorrect?
Well, look, the facts of the matter are that we need more backup and storage in the system. It is as simple as that,
is this the right investment?
You don't have to be a... Well, absolutely. I mean, there are relatively few strong storage projects we have. I mean, we shouldn't be trying to replicate what Snowy can do with batteries because it would cost 50 times more. And I've seen a lot of business cases over the course of my career. It's compelling, it makes sense, it will deliver very significant benefits to energy consumers.
Yes.
Independent estimates tell us $4.4 to $6.6 billion. So this is it's a strong business case.
How is, because you're also intervening in the market through your underwriting program of new projects, how is that progressing?
We started with 66 projects. We whittled that down before the election to a short list of 12. Of those 12, I've announced just in the last day or so that we are in advanced negotiations with several of those. They're across a range of different fuel sources, coal, gas, hydro, and they are providing supply into the market. But let me make a point about both Snowy 2 and this. They are commercial interventions in the sense that they're only interventions that are made if they deliver a return on investment to the taxpayer and a benefit to consumers.
Yes.
And this is a crucial point. What we've seen in this market for a long time, this is not just recently, the big energy companies, the biggest three energy companies in each market, haven't been investing. We're doing as little as we have to, Tiki, but frankly, we've seen in these markets, if they don't get the investment balancing up
Yep.
and making sure there's enough dispatchable power, power on demand, then we are going to have very serious issues, worse issues than we've already seen in the coming years.
But you're intervening in the market and actually making it more difficult potentially for others who might want to intervene, might want to invest from the private sector side to actually price investment and risk.
Well, that's just not right, Tikki. I mean, the investment through the Underwriting New Generation program will come from the private sector.
Yep.
Let's be clear about that. That's the whole point of the exercise, is coming from the private sector. And the point I've just been making is the big energy companies haven't been investing. The projects that have been happening haven't been on their balance sheets. Let's be clear about that. And we are doing as little as we have to encourage that investment into the marketplace.
Right.
And if we don't invest, the outcome will be simple: higher prices and less reliability.
We've just heard this week that the aluminium sector in this country looks like it's on life support. We're hearing that Alcoa, a huge business, is under pressure globally to use greener energy than Victorian brown coal, which wouldn't be hard, you'd think, putting the Portland aluminium smelter in doubt, frankly. That means jobs. What will that do to the grid if that disappears, and what can you do about it?
Well, Tikki, Alcoa hasn't mentioned Portland in those reports. There's been no talk of Portland, so let's be clear about that.
But isn't that what they mean?
We can speculate, but it is, well, no. Well, they've talked about the global industry generally, and that's about prices. Let's be clear.
But it's brown coal, isn't it?
The price of aluminium versus the price of aluminium. Well, no, that's not what Alcoa has been talking about. They've been talking about the economics of aluminium smelting, and that is understandable, and that's been a global phenomenon. But it is also true, Tikki, that we need to have policies in place to put downward pressure on prices and ensure that we've got enough affordable, reliable supply into the system. Now, Victoria, where Portland is a state right now which has been prematurely closing its coal-fired power stations, has a ban on gas, exploration and development, has a reckless target in line with what the South Australians did, which is pushing prices to be the highest in the country, and at the same time they're saying they don't need more dispatchable power like Snowy 2. So they are in a dire situation.
I agree, Victoria is not making it easy for you, but coal-fired generators want sufficient notice, quote unquote, from you.
Me.
Well, they want sufficient notice.
It's not about me, Tikki.
Yeah. Let me ask you, though, coal-fired generators want sufficient notice before a smelter can leave the national electricity market. Can you give them that?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, these are commercial businesses, but I'll tell you, the best way to keep aluminium smelters in the market is to make sure we've got a competitive, affordable, reliable wholesale market, because that's the price they buy at, is kind of somewhere near to the wholesale price, and we need to make sure we have that, and the key to that is more supply, which is dispatchable, which is there on demand in the market, and that is exactly what we're doing, Tikki. Look, and part of that is not just bringing new investment in, but in the shorter term, it's making sure the investment in the market doesn't prematurely close. Now, we saw in Victoria the premature closure of Hazelwood, which was disastrous for the wholesale market.
Finally, can I ask you about the government's big stick legislation, which I think is going to be voted on next month? You look to have Labor support. You don't need the crossbench support, which would have pressured it to go across to other sectors beyond energy. Can you now rule out, for a very worried business community, that the big stick will not be used more broadly than in the energy sector?
Let's be clear. This is an energy-specific policy and piece of legislation. It is sunsetted by 2025, and Tikki,
so can you rule it out then?
Doing yes, it covers only the electricity sector. That is unambiguous. It's public. It's available. You can read it. It's very clear. But let's be clear here. The divestiture powers, which are the piece of this that has attracted all the attention, exist in the US and exist in the UK. And in all of my business career, I never saw a single investment where the investors in the US or UK, where the investor said, I'm not investing in the US or UK because there are divestment powers. I'm confident that we've got the right attitudes emerging now in the big energy companies, and we hope that the conduct will be such that it won't be necessary to use that legislation.